I honestly believed Lauren had it all. She seemed grounded, accomplished, and like someone genuinely ready to settle down. Just 3 weeks before we were supposed to tie the knot, she accidentally sent me a voice message that was clearly meant for her sister. What I heard in that recording shattered everything I thought I knew about our relationship. By the time the sun came up, I'd made a decision that would leave everyone stunned. My name's Ethan Cole. I'm 38. I own and run a successful HVAC company here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's been my grind for the past 9 years, and I built it from nothing. Now, I've got dependable contracts with a handful of commercial buildings and a solid crew of 6 guys I can count on. It's good, honest work, and it pays better than most people think. In fact, I've done well enough to put a down payment on a beautiful home in Northeast Heights, with enough left over to start building the kind of life I always hoped to share with someone who truly mattered. That person was supposed to be Lauren Whitman. We crossed paths 3 years ago during my buddy Tyler's wedding up in Santa Fe. Tyler and I go way back. We've been tight since high school. We played football together, pulled our share of stunts, and somehow managed to stay close even as adulthood sent us down different paths. His wedding was straight out of a New Mexico postcard, those red rock cliffs, the golden hour vows, the whole cinematic package. Lauren was one of the bridesmaids, and I'll be real with you, she caught my attention the second I saw her. There was just something magnetic about her, this glow she had that seemed to draw people in without her even trying. She was 37 at the time, and the way she carried herself, it showed. There was a kind of grace and certainty to her that you just don't see in folks still figuring themselves out. She knew who she was and what she wanted, or so I believed back then. We chatted a few times throughout the reception. Nothing too deep, just the kind of surface-level conversation you usually have at weddings. Still, there was this undeniable spark. Something between us clicked. She laughed at my jokes like she meant it. She remembered things I'd mentioned earlier, and when the music started, she actually came looking for me. I left that night thinking I might have just met someone really special. But here's where I dropped the ball. Between catching up with old friends, sipping a little too much champagne, and stressing over not totally bombing my best man speech, I completely spaced on getting her phone number. By the time it hit me how badly I'd messed up, the night was over, and Lauren had vanished like smoke. I spent the next several days kicking myself, convinced I'd just let something rare slip through my fingers. Eventually, I swallowed my pride and gave Tyler a call. Told him straight, I needed Lauren's number. He cracked up and said I sounded like some lovesick teenager. But after a bit of teasing, his wife Rachel stepped in and gave the okay for him to pass along Lauren's contact info. Sometimes, you just have to put your ego aside and go for it, even if it makes you look a little desperate. Getting that number was one thing. Actually using it took me another 4 days of overanalyzing every possible opener. In the end, I kept it simple and real. I shot her a message, told her I was the guy from Tyler's wedding, said I'd enjoyed talking with her, and asked if she'd be up for grabbing coffee sometime. No fluff, no pretending. Just straight to the point. Her reply came back quicker than I expected. Hi Ethan, I was wondering if you'd reach out. Coffee sounds great, but I should probably tell you, I'm seeing someone at the moment. It's not super serious, but I believe in being upfront. That hit me like a brick. Here I was thinking we'd had this amazing moment, and she was already seeing another guy. But you know what? I had to respect the honesty. A lot of people would have just ignored the message or fed me a line. Lauren laid it out plain and clear, and that told me a lot about her. I replied back, letting her know I appreciated her honesty and that the offer stood if things ever changed. No pressure. No hard feelings. And that should have been the end of it. I probably should have just deleted her number and moved on. But Lauren wasn't ready to close that door. Over the next several weeks, she kept in touch. Little check-ins here and there, a picture of something that reminded her of a joke we shared at the wedding, a question about how work was going, stories from her day at the real estate office downtown. I didn't quite know what to make of it. Was she just being nice? Keeping me on standby in case things fell apart with her boyfriend? Or maybe she was feeling me out, seeing whether I was the kind of guy who respected boundaries, or the kind who stirred up drama. I decided to keep things low-key. I'd respond, keep the vibe friendly, but I wasn't going to cross any lines. If she was in a relationship, I wasn't going to interfere. Still, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping things might turn around. From what she shared, the guy didn't sound like a great partner. Always bailing on plans. Only showing up when it worked for him. Sometimes he'd just vanish for days. Lauren never directly complained, but I could read between the lines. She deserved better. And as time went on, maybe 2 months after that wedding, Her texts became more frequent. She started asking what I had going on over the weekend. Said she was feeling bored and looking for something fun to do. When I mentioned the hiking trip I had planned with a few buddies up in Los Alamos, Lauren didn't come right out and asked to join, but she made it pretty clear she thought it sounded like a fun idea. During one of our phone chats, I finally said, "You should tag along. It's nothing fancy, just a casual group heading out for some fresh air." There was a brief silence on the line before she replied, "I'd love to, but I'm not sure how Logan would feel about that." Logan. So now I had a name for the guy she was seeing. Well, I told her, he's more than welcome to come too, if that'd make it easier. Lauren chuckled. Logan? Outdoors? He thinks roughing it means staying at a hotel that doesn't have room service. And right then, I knew pretty much everything I needed to know about him. Fast forward 2 weeks after that talk, on a Wednesday evening, my phone buzzed while I was home sorting through some paperwork. I picked it up to hear Lauren's voice on the other end. Ethan, hey, it's me, she said, and something in her tone felt lighter than usual. I've got some news. Logan and I broke up. I set my pen down and focused in. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you doing all right? Honestly, she said with a sigh of relief. I feel good. It's been heading this way for a while. He did me a favor, really. Blew off our dinner plans for the 3rd time this month. Just didn't call. When I finally confronted him, all he said was that he needed space to figure things out. I shook my head and said, sounds like he made the decision for both of you. That made her laugh, and this time, it wasn't polite or forced. It was real. Exactly. And you know what's wild? I wasn't even heartbroken. I just felt done. Done making excuses for him. Done wondering if he'd bother showing up. I was chasing someone who clearly didn't want to be caught. This was the moment I hadn't taken back at the wedding, and I wasn't going to fumble it again. Well, if you're looking for someone who actually shows up when they say they will, I'm still game for that coffee. Or dinner. Or whatever you'd be comfortable with. I'd like that, she said, without a second of hesitation. Then her tone shifted. But Ethan, I need to be upfront. I'm 37. I'm not interested in wasting time playing guessing games or trying to figure out what I want. I already know. I want something real, with someone who wants the same. I hear you, I told her. I'm 35, and I built something I'm proud of. I'm not out here chasing casual flings either. I want a real partner. If that's what you're after too, then let's have that dinner. We ended up meeting that Friday at a steakhouse in Rio Rancho. Lauren walked in wearing a blue dress that brought out the color in her eyes, and for the first time since I met her, she looked genuinely at ease. We sat there for 3 straight hours, just talking. We covered everything, our families, our goals, the hard lessons we'd learned from past relationships. She opened up about her job selling luxury homes and how she'd built up a loyal group of clients over the last 8 years. I shared my ideas about growing my HVAC business, maybe even finding a partner so I could focus more on the bigger commercial projects. As we wrapped up dessert, Lauren looked at me and said, "You know what I find attractive about you? You actually have a plan. You know what you want and how to get there. That's rare and very appealing to a woman my age." I laughed and said, "Glad to know there's finally an upside to being the guy who plans everything ahead of time." She smiled, reached across the table, and touched my hand. "Believe me," she said, "there definitely is." After that night, things shifted for us. We started seeing each other on a regular basis, not those random, uncertain check-ins like before. Real, scheduled dates where we showed up, followed through, and just enjoyed each other's company. I'd swing by around 7:30, and we'd head out for dinner, catch a movie, or sometimes just wander around Tingley Beach, talking about anything and everything. Compared to what I was used to, dating Lauren felt like stepping into a completely different world. With younger women, it always seemed like there was some kind of drama, one emotional high followed by a sudden crash. But Lauren? She didn't do games. She knew what she wanted, she spoke clearly, and she never made me guess where I stood with her. 7 weeks into officially dating, we were eating dinner at her place when she finally brought up the thing I'd been thinking about, but didn't want to rush. "Ethan," she said, setting her wine glass aside, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Where do you see this going?" "Because I'm really enjoying being with you, but I'm at a stage in life where I need to know if we're building towards something real or just passing time." I respected her for putting it out there. "Lauren," I said, "I'm falling for you. Deep. I know we've only been doing this for a few weeks, but I can already picture a future with you. The only question is, do you feel the same way?" She leaned in closer, her voice softer now. "I do. And that scares me, to be honest. The last time I fell this quickly, it was with Logan, and we both know how that ended. I'm not him, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. I don't make promises I don't mean, and I don't run when things get hard. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it the right way. And what does that look like to you? She asked. To me, it means we're honest with each other, even when it's hard. It means we make time for one another because it matters, not just when it's convenient. And it means we're building a life together, not just coasting and hoping it all somehow works out. Lauren studied me for a second, like she was trying to read between the lines of what I just said. Then she smiled gently. You know, most men our age fall into two camps, either bitter from divorce or terrified of commitment because they've never been married. You're neither. I was engaged once, I told her, leaning back a little. About 4 years ago. She decided marriage wasn't for her and took off to Texas. It stung back then, sure, but it also showed me exactly what I didn't want anymore. That whole mess taught me something. I want a partner. Someone who's in it for the long haul, just like I am. Lauren nodded softly. I want that too. And I want it with you. That night, we made it official. Not just the we're not seeing other people kind of thing, but something more intentional. We weren't just dating anymore. We were headed somewhere. Weekends started belonging to us. She began spending more time at my place, and by our 2-month mark, I gave her a key. It didn't feel rushed, it felt right, like we were pacing each other step for step. 17 months in, I knew without a doubt, Lauren was the woman I wanted beside me for the rest of my life. We'd long since moved past that early, dreamy phase and settled into something real. The kind of connection where you back each other up no matter what life throws at you. When one of my biggest commercial accounts nearly pulled their contract over a billing dispute, Lauren sat down with me and helped craft a response that not only saved the deal, it expanded it. And when her real estate license was up for renewal and she needed continuing ed hours, I cleared my schedule to quiz her and keep the coffee flowing. I'd been thinking about proposing for months, but I didn't want to just check the box, I wanted to get it right. Lauren wasn't the kind of woman who cared about flashy or trendy. She appreciated meaning, thoughtfulness. So I listened. She told me once that her best childhood memories were of camping in Los Alamos with her family, crackling fires, cold nights, and the smell of pine in the morning. I figured that was the perfect way to tie in something I loved too. So I planned a weekend up in Cimarron Canyon, just the two of us. She thought it was just a break from the grind. What she didn't know was that I'd been carrying her grandmother's engagement ring in my backpack the whole trip, the same ring her mom had given me after I asked for her blessing 3 weeks earlier. That Saturday night, we were sitting around the campfire, just the two of us under a sky full of stars you'd never see from Albuquerque. You know what I love about being up here? Lauren said, eyes lifted. It's like life simplifies. Everything feels more real. More real how? I asked, even though I already had a feeling what she meant. Like, all the pressure we live with in the city, deadlines, traffic, image, money, it all just disappears. Up here, it's just us. And what we mean to each other. That was my moment. I stood up, walked around the fire, and stopped right in front of her. Lauren, I said, my voice steady, you're absolutely right. And what matters most to me, what's real, is you. I dropped to one knee and pulled the ring box out of my jacket. Her face lit up, her eyes wide even in the flicker of the flames. Lauren Whitman, I said, you make me want to be better every day. You're my teammate, my best friend, and the woman I want beside me through everything life throws our way. Will you marry me? She didn't even let me finish before tears started spilling, and she reached for me. Yes, Ethan. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. The ring slid onto her finger like it was made for her. Her mom had guessed the size perfectly. Lauren wrapped her arms around me and kissed me like the world had just cracked open in the best way possible. When we finally pulled apart, she laughed and said, I can't believe you pulled this off without me catching on. How long have you been planning this? Months, I admitted. I just wanted it to be something you'd never forget. Well, she said, holding her hand up so the diamond caught the firelight, it is. It's perfect. Everything about this is perfect. We stayed up most of the night talking about the wedding, the future, what we both wanted life to look like. She said she always dreamed of a fall wedding. October, when the air's crisp and perfect for something outdoors. I told her whatever made her happy worked for me. Those first few weeks of being engaged, they really were some of the best. Lauren moved in officially, and that's when my place finally stopped looking like a single guy lived there. She had an eye for details, pillows, curtains, layout. Stuff I'd never think about. Within a month, My house looked like something out of one of those magazines they put in dentist offices. Stylish, cozy, somewhere that actually felt like home. And she dove into planning the wedding with the same fire she brought to everything. She had spreadsheets for every vendor, a running checklist for the dress fittings, and a color palette picked within 2 weeks. I mostly stayed out of the way and let her lead the charge, stepping in when she wanted my input on something bigger. One evening, she asked, "What do you think about the desert botanical garden for the ceremony? It's gorgeous. It's got that New Mexico vibe, and the photos will be stunning." I didn't even hesitate. "Sounds perfect," I said. And I meant it. Lauren had great taste. I trusted her completely. But slowly, little things started feeling off. She'd spend hours on the phone with her sister Natalie, whispering about wedding stuff. Whenever I walked in, they'd either switch the subject or end the call altogether. I brushed it off. Figured maybe sisters talk about emotional stuff that guys don't need to be part of. But then, about 2 months into the engagement, I started seeing something else in Lauren. She seemed restless. Like something was tugging at her from the inside, something unsettled that hadn't been there before. Lauren started tossing out these ideas for spontaneous weekend trips to places we'd never once talked about visiting. Or she'd bring up old friends I'd never met, talking like their lives were straight out of a travel documentary. One Sunday morning over coffee, she said, "Did I ever tell you about my college roommate, Maya? She just got back from this month-long photography trip to Nicaragua. Just packed up and went, no plan, just chasing her passion." Without thinking much, I replied, "That sounds impractical." Lauren gave me a look I hadn't seen before. Not angry, just puzzled, a little deflated. "Impractical," she repeated, like she was weighing the word in her mouth. "Ethan, she's following her dreams. She's living authentically." I tried to walk it back a little. "I just meant, most people our age can't just up and disappear for a month. We've got jobs, bills, things we're responsible for." "Right," she said quietly. "Responsibilities." And it was something in her voice, flat and far away, that made me glance up from my paper. There was something behind her eyes I didn't quite recognize. I should have asked her what was wrong right then. Should have leaned in and listened, instead of nodding and going back to thinking about the commercial bid I had due Monday. But I didn't. I let it slide. After that, those little moments kept happening. Lauren would mention someone who'd made a big, bold change, quit their job to start a pottery studio, moved across the country for love, backpacked across Europe with no return ticket. And each time, I'd respond the same way. Level-headed, realistic, focused on the risk, not the adventure. In my mind, I was being exactly who she said she needed: solid, grounded, a guy she could count on. What I didn't realize was she might have been starting to wonder if solid also meant stuck. 2 weeks out from the wedding, everything looked perfect on paper. We had the venue locked in, the flowers sorted, the dress tailored so precisely it looked like it had been made just for her. She'd just gotten back from Reno with her bridal crew, 5 of her best friends, a long weekend full of spa time and shows. She came back glowing, genuinely happy for the first time in months. She couldn't stop talking about the food, the dancing, how great it was to reconnect with friends she rarely got to see. It felt like some part of her had woken up out there in the desert under neon lights. And I couldn't tell if that was a good thing or a warning sign. A few nights later over dinner, she brought it up. "You know what Rachel said in Reno?" she asked, smiling. Rachel, her maid of honor, a college friend I'd heard a lot about. She said she's never seen me this happy, that I seem more settled, more content than I ever have. "That's great to hear," I said. But inside, the word settled landed a little wrong. Like something you do for someone else, not because you want to. I hesitated. "Lauren, are you happy? Really happy?" She reached across the table and took my hand. "Of course I am, Ethan. Why would you even ask that?" "I don't know. Lately you just seem a little far away, like your mind's somewhere else." She squeezed my hand. "It's just the wedding. It's a lot. Once it's behind us, once we're married, things will calm down. They'll get better. We'll be better." And I wanted to believe her. Honestly, I did. The wedding was costing more than I'd planned, but Lauren had her heart set on certain details, and I could afford it. My business was holding strong, and I figured if this made her happy, then it was worth every dime. That week, both our families rolled into town. My parents drove down from Los Alamos. Lauren's flew in from the West Coast. The house was full of laughter and wine and stories. Everyone kept asking about our honeymoon plans, Hawaii for a week. And if we were thinking about kids. We talked about that. At 38 and 40, we didn't have a ton of time to spare, but we'd agreed we'd enjoy the first year of marriage before diving into parenthood. "You two are going to have beautiful babies," Lauren's mom said over dinner, smiling across the table at me. "And Ethan, you're going to make such a wonderful father. Lauren needs someone steady and reliable." There it was again. Reliable. I know she meant it as a compliment. And maybe 7 months earlier, I'd have taken it as one. But lately, that word felt like code for boring, safe, predictable. I caught Lauren's face as her mom said it. For half a second, I thought I saw something, an awkward flicker, a look she tried to hide. She smiled quickly and changed the subject to our travel plans. That night, the night before our wedding, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about how much life was about to change, and wondering if maybe, just maybe, I was the only one still holding on with both hands. The next day, Lauren was supposed to become my wife. We were supposed to step into the life we'd spent the past year planning. I should have felt excited, maybe even a little nervous. But instead, I found myself lying there in the dark, wondering if Lauren was having the same thoughts I was, or if she was somewhere else, wide awake, asking herself if marrying me was the right decision at all. The morning of what should have been my wedding day started like any other Friday. I got to the office early, trying to knock out a bit of client work before taking 2 weeks off for the wedding and honeymoon. Lauren and I had agreed not to see each other the day before the ceremony. She was the one who insisted, some old superstition about bad luck. I didn't mind. I was reviewing a commercial HVAC contract when my phone buzzed. Voice message from Lauren. We send each other those all the time, reminders about groceries, little check-ins, nothing big. I hit play, barely looking up from my notes. But what came through wasn't her usual, "Hey babe." It was Lauren's voice, mid-conversation. Took me a few seconds to realize she'd accidentally recorded and sent a message meant for her sister, Natalie. "I don't know if I can go through with this wedding tomorrow, Nat," she was saying. I froze. My blood went cold. "Ethan's such a good man, and I do love him," she went on. "But there's no fire there, you know? No passion. We never even fight." Which, yeah, sounds good. But sometimes I wonder if that just means we don't care enough to fight. I stopped reading. The contract could wait. This needed my full attention now. "He's everything I said I wanted after Logan," she continued. "Stable, reliable, successful. He shows up. He remembers things. He'd never hurt me, never disappoint me." She sighed. "But Nat, sometimes I feel like I'm marrying him because he's the safe choice, not because he's the right choice. Does that make me a terrible person?" I could hear Natalie in the background, but her words were muffled. Lauren kept talking. "I know I'm being crazy," she said. "Ethan is perfect on paper. He's going to be a great husband, a great dad. But sometimes I miss that feeling like my heart's going to explode because I want someone so bad. With Ethan, everything's just comfortable, and I'm scared that comfortable isn't enough for the rest of my life." The message ended, but I just sat there staring at the screen, staring at a reality I hadn't expected. Lauren wasn't having cold feet over some little detail or flower arrangement. She was questioning us. Questioning if she wanted this life at all. Questioning me. My first instinct was to call her, confront it all right then. But something in me held back. Maybe it was the fact that she was saying all this to her sister instead of to me. Maybe it was the sinking feeling that if this was where her head was the day before our wedding, these doubts hadn't just popped up overnight. They'd been building. I forwarded the voice message to my personal email. Saved it to the cloud. I don't even know why I did that. Maybe I knew she'd try to delete it once she realized. Maybe I just needed proof that it wasn't all in my head. I stayed in that chair for another hour, not working, just staring, trying to make sense of the fact that the woman I was about to marry thought of me as safe. Not thrilling, not unforgettable, just safe. A fallback. And the worst part? I couldn't even blame her. She wasn't wrong. I was reliable. I was stable. And yeah, maybe even a little predictable. I always thought those were strengths. But maybe, to Lauren, they were reasons to settle. By the time I left the office that evening, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't marry someone who saw me as second best. And Lauren, she deserved more than a life that felt like settling. I didn't sleep that night. By 5:30 a.m., my mind was made up. I packed a small bag enough for a week. Sat down at the kitchen counter and wrote a letter. Nothing dramatic. Just honest. "Lauren, you accidentally sent me the voice message meant for Natalie. I heard everything you said about choosing the safe option over the right one. I won't be anyone's consolation prize. And you deserve to be with someone who makes your heart race. The wedding is canceled. Please move your things out by Sunday. I left the letter on the kitchen counter, right by the coffee machine where I knew she'd see it. Then I got in my truck and drove to my parents' place in Los Alamos. When I called, my dad just said, "We'll have coffee ready." No questions. That's the kind of man he is, steady, like a rock. No drama. Just there. By 10:15 a.m., the storm had started. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Lauren, our family, the venue, friends. Everyone wanted answers. I didn't give explanations. Just forwarded Lauren's voice message to anyone who pushed. Let them hear the reason from her own words. Lauren showed up at my parents' house Sunday evening. She looked like hell. Her eyes were swollen from crying, hair tied back in a messy ponytail, standing on the porch like she didn't know what to say. She was wearing sweatpants, no makeup, hair thrown back, like she'd stopped trying to keep up appearances. Looked like she'd been crying for days. "Ethan, please," she said the second I opened the door. "Can we talk?" "There's nothing to talk about, Lauren," I told her, calm but firm. "You said everything I needed to hear in that message to Natalie." "I was just nervous," she insisted. "Just pre-wedding jitters. Everyone has doubts before they get married." I stood there in the doorway, watching the woman I almost married. And for a second, I did feel a little sorry for her. But only for a second. "Yeah," I said. "Doubts about the flower arrangements?" "Sure. Doubts about loving the person you're about to commit your life to? That's something else entirely." "I do love you, Ethan," she said, voice cracking. "No," I said gently. "You love that I'm safe, that I'm not Logan, that I'd never hurt you. But you don't love me enough to choose me over the idea of excitement or drama or whatever it is you think you're missing." Lauren reached out like she wanted to touch my hand, but I stepped back. "We can fix this," she said. "We could go to therapy. Take a break. Figure it out." "No," I said. "We can't fix the fact that you see me as the guy you settled for. You want passion? Go find it. But don't string me along while you search." And then I closed the door. She stayed out on that porch for 15 minutes, crying. I stood there, just on the other side, listening. But I didn't open the door again. That was the last time I ever saw Lauren Whitman. 2 months later, I heard from my buddy Tyler that she'd moved out to Florida. Apparently, she was dating a surf instructor. I hope he gave her every ounce of excitement she was looking for. It's been 3 years since that morning. 3 years since I chose self-respect over a life built on someone else's compromise. Hardest call I've ever made. But the most important one, too. Because I'd rather be alone than be the guy someone settled for. Since then, my business has taken off. Maybe I had more time to focus. Or maybe standing up for myself gave me a kind of quiet confidence I hadn't had before. I landed several big commercial contracts, hired 8 more employees, and moved into a bigger place in Rio Rancho. I even started traveling, something Lauren used to call impractical. Turns out, it wasn't impractical at all. It was just something I wanted, and finally felt free to do. I've dated since then. Not a ton, but enough. I'm more selective now. I'm not looking for someone who sees me as the safe option. I'm looking for someone who sees me as the option. Someone who chooses me not because I make sense on paper, but because they can't picture life without me. Last month, I met someone. Her name's Julia. I met her on a hiking trail in Santa Fe, part of a local group outing. She's 35, a nurse practitioner who recently moved to New Mexico from Utah. When I told her I run an HVAC business, she didn't hear safe or boring. She heard driven. When I said I like to plan trips out in advance, she didn't roll her eyes, she smiled. "That's thoughtful," she said. On our 3rd date, she looked at me and said, "You know what I like about you, Ethan? You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just you. And you're good at being you. That's attractive." It's been 8 weeks now, and being with Julia, it's different. Completely different. She appreciates that I'm steady, but doesn't take it for granted. She sees structure and planning not as something that limits fun, but something that makes it possible. But the biggest difference? I never sit across from her wondering if she wishes I was someone else. She chose me, not because I was a safe bet, but because I was the right one. And when I think back on everything that happened with Lauren, I don't feel bitterness anymore. I feel thankful. That voice message? It shattered me in the moment, but it also saved me from years of feeling like someone's second choice. Lauren did me a favor, even if she didn't mean to. She showed me the truth before I signed my life away to a woman who didn't truly want me. I'm 41 now. I'm successful. I'm confident. And for the first time in my life, I know exactly what it feels like to be someone's first choice. And let me tell you something, fellas, that makes all the difference in the world.